Hello, I'm Konrad Feldman, co-founder and CEO at Quantcast. We are the champions of a free and open internet and the creators of a new and innovative intelligent audience platform. We work with publishers, brands and agencies around the world to help them better understand and engage their audiences online and empower those audiences to make more informed privacy choices. Today I'm going to touch on some emerging themes and how I think they'll impact our ability to thrive as an industry and the potential pitfalls ahead of us. But before we talk about the future, I want to briefly look back at how we got to where we are today. The internet democratized content distribution. For the first time in history, anyone with a phone line and a computer could create content, distribute it to the world, and find their audiences. And for those audiences, this incredible new medium opened up a world of possibilities, a truly open internet. Today, 5 billion people around the world rely on the internet for information, communication, entertainment, education, and so much more. But in those early days, an insidious myth emerged, the internet's original sin, allowing everyone to believe the internet is free. Yes, we let the world believe that all this diverse, vibrant content available to all of us, wherever and whenever we wanted it, has no cost. The truth is that good content is often a labor of love, a product of the metaphorical and sometimes quite literal blood, sweat and tears of creators, journalists and storytellers. Of course, the economic model that funds most of this content is advertising. And on the face of it, life is good. Digital advertising has gone from strength to strength. This year it is projected to grow to over £333 billion. That's more than 1/3 of £1 trillion. That is a huge number. So if advertising is the primary source of funding for the content and services that we all rely on, and the digital ad market continues to grow, what's the problem? Power is the problem. For all the growth in digital advertising, most of the benefit accrues to just two companies. They built effective services that we all use every day, drawing large, engaged global audiences and removing a lot of the friction when it comes to separating marketers from their budgets. The same fragmentation and diversity that makes the open internet such an awesome power also leads to complexity and inefficiency in reaching audiences consistently. With that comes greater friction for marketers seeking returns from their investments. Where before there was chaos and confusion, a small number of now very large companies created a sense of order, a seemingly safe, predictable environment where brands can easily spend their budgets. This sense of predictability and control delivered these companies huge success and financial reward, and the vast majority of all new budgets spent on digital advertising. Yet these companies don't account for the vast majority of time spent online, nor do they account for the vast majority of the original content that we all enjoy, the content that creators, journalists, and storytellers slave over to produce. What's more, some of these companies now act as the de facto internet gatekeepers. The same companies whose browsers dictate how advertising on the open internet can be delivered and measured also operate large media and advertising businesses themselves. And they're increasingly using their position as operators of the browsers and operating systems that we must all use to dictate how advertising can operate. Whether you consider these changes good or bad, make no mistake, these companies aspire to a similar share of the ad budgets on their devices as they currently derive from them for all the apps that must use their stores, if not more. If it becomes harder to fund content creation on the open internet through advertising, not only will independent publishers suffer, these tech giants will directly and immediately benefit as the advertising budgets instead flow into their walled gardens. So what? So what if a few successful companies have cracked the code and become rich along the way? What if the little guys, the independent content creators, local newspapers, have suffered? Bad luck. Things change, right? The problem with that way of thinking is that we're cheating our future selves. Outside the artificially curated worlds of the walled gardens, the environment is getting more hostile for content producers. The dominant platforms have a vice-like grip over a publisher's ability to access and create value from their audiences, and the vice is tightening. It's tough for independent publishers, and it's becoming harder for new voices to emerge. A less vibrant open internet favors the giant corporations. One clear loser have been the local news outlets which provide the essential last mile of information about the world around us. Our children won't thank us for handing them this world. They won't thank us for reducing the diversity of trustworthy sources of news and information. They won't thank us for concentrating the power over that information into the hands of a small number of large, powerful companies. Just as biodiversity, is a sign of a healthy natural environment. A diverse open internet is a sign of a healthy society. If we don't act, we risk handing our children an intellectual crisis in addition to an environmental one. Investing in the open internet by directing more advertising budgets to a wider diversity of publishers should be a no-brainer. This is not simply some benevolent charitable effort. It's in a brand's best interest to maintain a broad range of options for reaching their target audiences. And these audiences, they are at the very heart of the open internet. And they are more diverse, richer, and more genuine than under the social spotlight of the walled gardens. Unfortunately, until now, reliably reaching a target audience across the highly fragmented world of the open internet has been so much harder than doing so inside the walled gardens. The ad tech industry was born to solve this problem, but has also contributed to the confusion by creating a messy patchwork of vendors with competing claims that brands have struggled to unpick and tie back to genuine business results. And the often opaque mix of companies has fostered wider distrust amongst consumers in the role of online advertising. Despite all of this, advertising technology underpins the financial viability of virtually every site that you rely on. And this technology is facing its biggest challenge ever. Seismic changes are afoot. The future of the open internet is at stake, and we are entering a period of intense invention and reinvention. Specifically, the mechanisms to identify and understand consumers and the data that is available to improve advertising are undergoing change. Along with the increasing role of consumer consent, all of these are taking on new importance and new urgency, and not just as nice to have, but as central, fundamental pillars of a sustainable open internet economy. Let's start with the big one, the one that everyone has been talking about, identifying audiences in a world without cookies. Google has delayed the deprecation of third-party cookies for 2 years until 2023, but this is not a reason to sit back. Already today, a large and growing portion of internet media consumption has no third-party cookie associated with it. And for the internet economy to continue to thrive, alternative identifiers to the third-party cookie will be essential. Precisely what these identifiers will look like remains an active area of research. And companies such as Quantcast are working on solutions in addition to supporting industry-wide efforts. Whether or not you believe that browsers should have the power to decide the fate of the open internet, they will have a heavy influence on its future. And the ultimate picture will only come into focus when we gain greater clarity from the browsers that currently dictate the rules. And, as increasingly looks likely, when regulatory agencies around the world are satisfied that those changes won't disproportionately benefit the very companies imposing those changes. One thing we can be fairly sure of is that our notions of identity resolution, modeling, and measurement will need greater flexibility than ever before, and that the most scalable mechanisms for understanding audiences and measuring advertising results will likely do so using a combination of techniques. Will it be deterministic email-based identifiers? Probabilistic identifiers? Cohorts? Contextual? Yes, it will be all of these and more, individually and combined. Our systems will need the flexibility to be able to respond to different types of identity resolution and be able to work at different levels simultaneously to create compelling results. Just as we will need flexibility in resolving identity, we will need increased flexibility and sophistication in the interpretation of signals that allow us to understand audience characteristics, behaviors, and intent. One of the most widely used signals, one that has fueled much of the growth in programmatic advertising, has been so-called third-party data, often sold by data brokers and bought by brands to help with their campaigns. This data can be unreliable. It's often old and inconsistent, and increasing privacy legislation and browser actions will only exacerbate these problems. More and more companies are reading the tea leaves, and we've seen some major players already withdraw from the European market. Is this a sign of things to come for other data companies and in more markets around the world? The truth is, first-party data that is collected directly by your organization and subsequently used by you for measurement and decision-making, has always been superior to third-party data. It's fresher, it's more accurate, it's more trustworthy. First-party data is the critical ingredient in tomorrow's open internet economy. Another signal that is getting renewed attention is contextual, the idea that we can interpret consumer interests situationally, for example, on the basis of the content that they are currently consuming. This is a concept as old as advertising itself, and it is regaining its spot in the limelight as it's not dependent on third-party cookies. The truth is, context has always been of key importance in creating relevant advertising experience. It was important with cookies. It will be even more important without them. While the concept of contextual relevance is not new, machine learning technology is rapidly advancing the state of the art. The Quantcast platform launched earlier this year, and at its heart is Ara, an AI and machine learning engine that builds predictive audience models, rationally prices advertising opportunities, and autonomously optimizes advertising campaigns. One component of this engine is the Ara topic map. Using the latest developments in natural language processing and deep learning, Ara ingests the messy content of the open internet and organizes it into a high-dimensional context space, which can be used directly for machines for advertising-related analysis and optimization, and also interpreted by humans to gain new understanding and insight. Our topic map allows for a nuanced and subtle understanding of content across the open internet, with higher fidelity and consistency for understanding context than the coarse predefined contextual labels that are widely used commonly today. Context is just one of the signals you should be using. While the precise mechanics of the industry post-cookie are yet to come into full view, I'm confident that investments made today in improving the quality and diversity of all signals that can be used to understand audiences will be incredibly valuable as our industry evolves. We've talked about advertising, we've talked about content. Now let's talk about the most critical component of a vibrant open internet: consumers. It is they who consume content and advertising. It is they who publishers work so hard to engage, inform, and entertain, and it is they who must consent to their participation and role in this ecosystem. Consent is not a new concept for everyone here in Europe, nor for Quantcast. Our consent management platform, Quantcast Choice, has been deployed across millions of web domains and supports more consent capture in the European programmatic ecosystem than any other solution. Just as consent has become front and center in Europe following GDPR, so similar regulations are being introduced around the world. This means that all businesses are going to have to explain to consumers what data they need and why, and ask for consent. They will have to allow consumers to change their mind. We know consumers value free content and that society benefits greatly from it. It's also likely that many consumers don't fully appreciate that all that free content they enjoy is largely funded by advertising. This is an opportunity to address that original sin. Regardless of what the future holds, we cannot take the open internet for granted, and it is worth fighting for. Quantcast has been at the forefront of developing innovative solutions for the open internet for over a decade, and we welcome this challenge. As I mentioned, we've recently launched the Quantcast platform, a fully integrated suite of planning, activation, measurement, and insight tools for audience-centric advertising on the open internet for today and for our post-cookie future. By providing advanced technologies for all brands, agencies, and publishers, we see a future where the playing field is leveled and empowered companies can thrive on the open internet, creating, for the first time ever, a true alternative to the walled gardens. There's a lot of work to be done, but when that work will lead to a healthy and sustainable, diverse and equitable open internet, it's work that is worth us all doing together. The road ahead will likely have some unexpected turns, but it can, and I believe it will, lead to a brighter future. We're excited to partner with all of you to build the future of the open internet. As we wrap up today, I'll leave with my key insights as we champion the open internet together. First, now is not the time to relax and get comfortable. While cookies and Chrome will be around until 2023, already today a huge portion of the internet is running with no third-party cookies. Investments in cookieless solutions today can deliver results today. Already today, companies are using Quantcast to access consumers in cookieless environments and gain greater reach and more business outcomes than they can with cookies alone. Don't wait. Next, as the industry breaks out of its dependence on third-party data, everyone will need to have more flexibility in interpreting the multitude of signals available to help us more accurately understand, optimize, and measure audiences and advertising. Finally, it may get clearer and easier over time, but for the foreseeable future, it's going to be murkier and messier. Fortunately, advances in technology such as machine learning and artificial intelligence can help illuminate the hard to see and tame some of this complexity by ingesting messy yet information-rich signals and interpreting them to provide a clearer picture so advertisers can make more informed decisions. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you.